Men rising up to end the silence around us about the chains that bind us, to dispel the darkness of illusion with luminous spiritual technologies, to finally become the hero within us all. This is Arise, the Honest Man's podcast. I am Karuna Avatar Das, and with me is my dear co-host Jai Jagannath Prabhu, as per usual. And today we are also joined by a very exuberant, energetic, passionate, incredible guy. His name is Nakula Das, and we're going to be getting into some seriously interesting, contentious, controversial subject matter. But this is a very, very necessary conversation for our society as a whole. So we're super, super keen to get right into it. But before we do that, I'm just going to give this this bio is so epic. You have no idea. Okay, here it comes. Are you ready? As one of the most captivating and passionate trainers and speakers on the subject of sex, Nakul's dynamic energy can be felt throughout the entire audience, inspiring both tears and laughter. He infuses stories on sex, spirituality, and modern problems into profound lessons on faith and freedom. He is the general of the Semen Retention Army, creator of the Become a Sexual Alchemist training program, and sex guru for modern men. Please welcome Nakula Das.
Oh, that's okay. I'm gonna just start off, be perfectly honest about that bio. So I wrote it just so everybody knows, right? Okay. And
I figured.
Yeah. So you're like, wow, you have to really think a lot about yourself to put you in that position. But and actually, I have to be honest. My wife helped me write it, and when your wife helps you write your own bio, she can either like really bring it to life or squash it down. That's the power of the feminine, right? In that sense. But I gotta say that it's the first time I've heard it read out loud, right, back to me, and I love it. So thank you. I'm so happy with it. Yeah, it's the best intro I've ever had. Yeah.
You know what we like to start with? I'm interested in just a quick, maybe one sentence or two sentence definition of what is sexual alchemy, or like a sexual alchemy coach. And that's one question. And the second question is, how did you move? Like, what's your story specifically from Krishna Consciousness, which has a strong Vedantic vibe to it, which is like, a stress on renunciation, to this particular work that you do, which, as we'll come to see in the course of the conversation, is like more sex positive than the sort of Vedantic stuff that we're accustomed to encountering in the Krishna Conscious society. So yeah, those two questions, I want to begin there. Just, what is sexual alchemy or sexual alchemist coach? And how did you move from Christian conscious with a strong Vedantic slant to this sort of work, or story behind that?
Yeah, sure. So sexual alchemy is the process in taking raw semen and transmuting it so it begins to flow upwards in the body and begins to fuel your evolutionary growth.
That's interesting. That sounds like the Urdhva Retasa people that we hear about in Shastra also. Urdhva Reta means those who direct their semen upward.
Yeah, so that's what sexual alchemy is. It's the ability to direct your semen upward. The according to the yogic path, this is done by strict renunciation. In the Taoist path, it is done by let's say a regulative lifestyle. But actually, that is not true. The highest Taoist monks as well are completely in renounced order. So highest always is renounced order. And when I present sexual alchemy, I'm very clear to tell people, this is not brahmachari, what I'm telling you to do. This is not brahmachari. This is, at best, in between being an all-out, like, sex, porn, masturbating, teenaging, hormone-raging person that I am, and going, well, I ain't going to be, I'm not my guru, I'm not Bhakti Marg Swami, I'm not Radhanath Swami, I'm not Srila Prabhupada. Admire those guys, bow to those guys. I learn from them, but I am not them. I live a very, like, I grew up in Toronto, Canada. I was a rapper, man. My name was Token, and I travel the country spreading marijuana lifestyle. And sex culture from like a total, like, I want to be 50 Cent, right? My heroes were 50 Cent and Tupac Shakur. These are my heroes, okay?
Oh God, dude.
And so then
I could appreciate Tupac, but 50 Cent.
oh
Anyway,
yeah,
anyway,
but it's a
carry on,
different vibe. It's a different vibe. That's for sure. I'll give you that. So anyways, so this is my background, right? And so, you know, depending where, you can ask me questions, but let's just, somehow or the other, I get onto the spiritual path. Somehow or the other, I get in front of Krishna Consciousness. And I'm like, this is awesome. I love this guy, Krishna. Now, I didn't come through association of devotees or anything either. I came to Krishna Consciousness through the YouTube ashram. All right. This is what I call the YouTube ashram, which is, I went to a Canadian shaman and got this powerful, like, Reiki healing session, which I was totally skeptical of going, but I was just in a desperate situation. I was following all this new agey stuff at Cartoli, all this stuff. And I myself am a certified life coach and have been inside personal development for about a decade. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 17. And I was looking for ways to make money. This is what I was like. I'm looking for ways to get rich, man. Like 50 Cent, get rich or die trying. I totally bought into it, right? And then, but I recognized, see, as I was going through all this entrepreneurial training, all of these mainly very Christian oriented coaches and speakers, but all of these folks had a very deep spiritual life and a very deep faith and understanding at some levels. Now, of course, once you get into Sastra, you realize what you think is deep is just I'm like, yeah, man, I'm so deep. And then someone's like, here, read Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah, I don't know nothing, man. I don't know nothing, right? So anyways, but the point is, my mindset was like, I'm getting into all this deep stuff. And it is, you know, to the average person, it's very deep. And so I started learning about law of attraction, all this stuff. That's how I find up coming to this book, Napoleon Hill, Sex Transmutation. I know I'm a little bit all over because my story's a bit all over. I can't tell it with just one linear, like, one thing, this it was just this kind of weird journey and exposure to different type of things in my life. So in one hand, I'm this rapper, I'm this entrepreneur, I've taken on the motto, get rich or die trying, you know, let's get buck wild and do revolutionary stuff like Tupac is my one energy that's very strong in me. And then I meet devotees, and then I meet spiritual people. I end up going to this Canadian shaman. She does this wild session on me, this energetic session. And I just have this incredible, what I'll call spiritual experience in where, you know, like what everybody talks about. I felt so present. I felt so euphoric. I could feel and sense, you know, the energy around me, all these type of things. But that didn't last very quickly because it's not like I was any practice. I didn't have any kind of sadhana or practice. But I had this amazing, tremendous experience. And there was two books that I read right after that totally drew my attention. One was Autobiography of a Yogi. And the second one was Bhagavad Gita by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Jai, right? And I liked him. Oh my goodness. I was like, this guy, I hate what he has to say. Like when he talks about sex and stuff, I was just like, I can't. But it's truth. It's truth. Like I'm smart enough to say, like, Dhruva, you know, I'm smart enough to be like, no, I get it. I'm less intelligent than the Swami because I still want this. But I understand the truth behind it. I get it. Like I was like, okay.
I can resonate with that a lot because when I first read Science of Self-Realization was my first book, and Prabhupada was hammering on the, you know, sex principle with that strong Vedantic renunciation mood. And I remember feeling like really disappointed with the message, but accepting it. Like, this is truth, but like feeling very disappointed by it.
Yeah, I was like, one of the first things that I heard was truth and beauty from the Science of Self-Realization. I just remember, like, the guy that brought me into Krishna Consciousness, we were just sitting on a bench and he was reading, and but at that point I was very disillusioned by everything, like all sorts of indulgence. And then hearing this story, I was just like, that is the truth, man.
That's it.
Bow down to that, you know.
It's scientific, especially in that, like, one of my favorite Prabhupada books is Easy Journey to Other Planets. I think it's the first book that he wrote. And sorry, I'm seeing some YouTube comments pop up, I guess, on my thing. And someone said, "Get rich or die trying," start laughing. Anyways, I'm going to shut that down so I'm not distracted, but I just started laughing. So that was my very first Prabhupada book that and I love, like, when so one thing you have to, the secret of reading Prabhupada books is that when you read his Prabhupada books, you feel his consciousness. That's his input into his writing. That's what people don't get about reading, right? They're like, oh, why am I? And they're reading the words. I'm like, look, the words are secondary to the consciousness in which you experience the purity in which he is writing, right?
Point, man.
And I said, so that's why the mood of which you do, but the mood in which you practice anything, including sex. Now, here's where I become controversial. Changes the consciousness of it. Now, I'm not disagreeing or going against Sastra at all by telling you that it makes perfect scientific sense that if you want an all spiritual, everlasting body, if you want a body that is purely spiritual, you must renounce the material body. It makes no sense that you can keep a material desire and still have a spiritual body, because that would go against the law of nature. It would go against all the new agey law of attraction stuff. It literally goes against everything that everybody thinks is spiritual. But here's what Prabhupada gave me that no one else gave me. He defined what is spiritual in a whole different way. He said spiritual is, and that's why I love the book. I think I say I really got it. I get it to the level I could possibly get it. I'm allowed to get it at this point. From the perspective that if I want to be spiritual, I have to be anti-material. Literally, like, I cannot be entrapped in the material elements, and I cannot be entrapped in the subtle ego and all this stuff and expect to be spiritual. And then the course of bhakti gives us this process, the process of yoga or devotional service gives us that way, as actually, from what I can tell, all major religions do in their own flavor, mood, and style, but the consciousness that's achieved is the same. So I came into this. Okay, do you want me to stop there?
No. Yeah, just not stop. Carry on. I'm just on Zoom, making sure that everyone has context who's joining us just now. We're trying to hear your story from Krishna Consciousness, which has a strong renunciation mood to it.
Okay.
To the
keep me on track.
To the sexual alchemist coach that you are now.
Okay. And
how do you go from point A of the strong renunciation to point B of the sexual alchemist coach and preaching like sex positive? So we're just getting your story still. We're still hearing your story.
Yeah. Okay. So I get introduced to Krishna Consciousness. Okay. I get introduced to Krishna Consciousness. I love it. I love Prabhupada. I'm in. To me, it makes perfect sense. As I start doing Krishna Consciousness, right, and I start practicing and everything, I face the realities of myself. Okay. Right. Okay. This is nice. This is beautiful. I feel the bliss within this philosophy. And then I feel the gap between me and the philosophy, right? I feel the gap, right? I'm like, okay, there's a serious gap. I'm coming from the depths of materialism, right? And I'm like, okay, and I get it. And I can accept this spiritual principle and scientific way of looking at it. And that's the way I look at the world. For me, it has to be very practical, right? It has to be very practical. And so I was like, okay, there's obviously a journey here. Now, I had this interesting opportunity where my wife got sick and we had to spend 6 months apart. And in this 6 months, I got to practice involuntary brahmachari, right? I didn't want to do it. It wasn't where I thought, but that was the scenario. And I'm very grateful. That's why I said it was an opportunity, because I grew tremendously. I also grew to this understanding of in myself that I have very strong ragistic, energy in me. I'm extremely passionate. I'm extremely fire. I didn't really understand that. So what I did is I started seeing this strong renunciation that was being taught and the standard in which Prabhupada set. And I agree, yes. And then I was like, but my reality right now where I'm at is it's causing me more suffering and more angst than to understand it better. So I wanted to understand it better. I said, I got to know what this means. And then I thought about the teachings I've learned through personal development about sex transmutation through Napoleon Hill's work. So Think and Grow Rich and the Laws of Success. In the Laws of Success, he dedicates an entire chapter, Think and Grow Rich, chapter 11, I believe, is entirely dedicated to the process of sex transmutation. Now, he doesn't have a renunciation mood, but he has a control or regulation mood, that this energy must be mastered so that this energy is allowed to build within somebody and that it has all the qualities of physical sex in an energetic form. What this means is that sex, semen, is the essence of a man's body on a physical level. Its qualities are, it's sticky, it multiplies, it's a penetrative force. It has all the masculine qualities on its physical level. So therefore, the principle is on its energetic level. It is all of those things. And therefore, sex is creative energy. So Napoleon Hill says sex is creative energy. And to me, that doesn't go against my understanding of Sastra, because Lord Brahma is creative energy, all intelligence, creative energy. But when manifested physically through the elements, right, through the subtle ego, the intelligence, and then all the elements, we then get it in its physical form. So in a physical way, we express this creative energy in material bodies through sex, through creation of babies. And the highest principle is that it should be used for the creation of babies. That's what Prabhupada gives us, and he doesn't budge. And I agree. But he didn't grow up listening to 50 Cent and Tupac Shakur
and porn culture
and watching porn and stuff and having just incredibly, having such an incredibly different philosophy about sex. So it's a big gap, right? And so I was like, okay, fine. Now we have, so these principles are there. I'm feeling discouraged in my Krishna consciousness because I can't do it right now. I'm like, I just can't. No, here, let me say that in a more empowering way. I make the choice not to do it right now. I choose to have a sex life with my wife. I choose to want to also have a semen retention life. Now, this is where I've learned. So as I began to study it, I study this idea of sex transmutation. I run into all of these famous people who have some kind of sexual transmutation practice. Muhammad Ali, Mahatma Gandhi, Steve Jobs, Kanye West, 50 Cent, right? I was like, my boy, right? He says he takes celibacy bouts, right? Kanye West talks about his sexual drive, about how he pours it into his music. He literally said, look at what you'll do. You'll stand in front of a, you'll stand in front of a club, you'll dress crazy, you'll do all kinds of things to increase the prospect of sex. Now take all of that drive and put it into, for Kanye West, he put it into his music. Muhammad Ali would no sex before a fight. David Haye, heavy world champion, 6 weeks before a fight, nothing. He talks about in his dreams. If a woman comes to him in his dreams, he says, I got to fight. I can't do nothing right now. Anyways, I can go on and on and on. Steve Jobs talking about he would have sex with his wife, but he would pull out and he would tell his partner, he says, no, I got to keep that because that's my power and that's my creativity. And I need to put that into my business. So these guys were,
what I'm hearing from you is that you come to Christian consciousness, you're digging it, but you realize there is a huge schism between the ideal and the reality, and that
my
ideal,
reality,
as is the nature of an ideal, is it tends to shame. I know the statement that beauty shames the ugly, strength shames weakness, and the ideal shames us all. And so you're feeling discouraged by the ideal whilst also digging it. And then you're encountering Napoleon Hill and these other authors speaking about sexual transmutation. And they're giving you a way that, okay, there's a way that I can go on this journey from where I'm standing now to where I need to be going. There's like a way I can go on this journey that isn't just like, I have to just renounce. That's what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah, 100%.
It sounds like, you know, it's sounding very reminiscent of Bhagavad Gita also, where in chapter 3, where Krishna is like putting the contrast of karma yoga and Gyan yoga as renunciation right next to each other, and saying better you like a karma yogi who regulates his life through these principles than just like a crass renunciation when you don't actually have adhikar for that. So that's kind of what I'm hearing. I'm just reflecting what I'm hearing, so I'm not getting
100%.
lost. Okay.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for that. I appreciate it, because I think you conveyed exactly what I'm trying to say in a nice way. And so now I can learn from that and go use it to explain it better in more interviews. I appreciate it. No, I love it. And you nailed it. Okay, like let's look at Varnashram, for example, like stages of life. So I'm 36. I'm in family life, right? I'm building my career. I'm building my family, my wealth. I'm doing very, very material things in this world, and at the same time, you know, I'm chanting and I'm practicing bhakti to the degree that I can in my life. And what I found out by all this study was that there was very, very medical Western ways of looking at this too. And I was like, this, and I was very fascinated by this. So I started studying papers and studies done by different medical associations and universities that backed up. They gave it like a very biology kind of, let's look at this biologically. And this is what really got me to understand the practice of sex transmutation in a deeper way. So within 7 to 10 days of a man not ejaculating, his body, by nature's design, is efficient, and basically says, so the highest pleasure, as Prabhupada taught us, the highest pleasure in the material world is sex. So therefore it's the highest drive. So pleasure is our highest drive. It's just that we fail to, in material consciousness, we seek it through material pleasure. In spiritual consciousness, we seek that same pleasure through service, right? And we get that same pleasure through service. That's the spiritual way. But we have to be purified or unattached, let's say, is my understanding, to the material world. I am not. At best, I'm regulating it. That's what I'm saying. That's where I'm at. So what I started looking at was, well, why does semen retention work? Semen retention works from a biological level because when 7 to 10 days after a man retains his semen, that semen gets reabsorbed in his body and recirculated through his blood. Now, because your material body's conscious is highest principle is sex and reproduction, right? Is survival. It takes all your best proteins, enzymes, nutrients, and it stores it and uses that in the semen. According to Ayurveda, it takes 40 to 60 ounces of blood to create 1 drop of semen. There's a tremendous amounts of energy that is going into semen production to give your potential offspring the best opportunity for life. Because you're not using it in semen retention, you're holding it back. It's building within you. As it's building, because your body's producing it, your sex drive or your sex energy or creative force is then building. Well, here's what happens. After 7 to 10 days, the body goes, hey, man, you're not doing your biological duty, which is to go and spread your seed, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to help you out here because you're obviously not attracting somebody. So what we're gonna do, you're obviously not man enough to attract. This is what nature is like. This is what nature's saying. Okay, nature's like. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take back those best proteins, enzymes, and nutrients. We're gonna recirculate in the body. And we're gonna help you out here. We're gonna start to, first of all, what ends up happening is your testosterone gets stimulated up to 150% after about 10 to 14 days of retention, especially if you've been ejaculating consistently for most of your life. And let's be honest, I learned about masturbation about 9 or 10, all right? And it's been on for like a good 20 years, right? You know what I'm saying? It was only until like, you read a spiritual book, you're like,
that's bad. Wait.
And then it's like, well, that makes a lot of sense. And then right, you start to go down the rabbit hole of like, okay, right? So most men, because they're ejaculating once, twice a day, 2-3 times a week through masturbation, especially, and porn is the worst way to ejaculate. But yeah, anyway, so you're ejaculating somehow, and even through sex, if you're ejaculating, it's not as bad through sex, and that we can get in and explain why, but you're still living. If you're ejaculating 2-3 times or more a week, you are living in an energetic state of depletion and probably don't know it. You probably got brain fog that you can clear up. You probably got a ton of skills and talent that isn't even being nurtured, because at a biological level, you are actually not being nurtured with your best stuff. So what happens is semen retention circulates through the blood all your best stuff. And this is why guys will be like, hey, all of a sudden my hair is thicker. My eyes are shinier. My voice is deeper. I got drive all of a sudden. Now I got.
You even start smelling sweet, man. Like
yes.
I got some heavy brahmachari friends. They fragrant, bro. They're fragrant.
100%. 100%. They're doing all the tantra stuff, and they're smelling like flowers, and they're like, right? And so it's great. In my opinion, it's all good, because especially we're so deep. Look at the state of our society right now. Okay, let's talk a little bit about state of men just for a second, and then we'll continue on this understanding semen retention at a deeper level. But the state of men right now is reportedly 1 out of every 10 men is addicted to porn. Okay,
only one. I thought
that's
like
reportedly.
7.
We all know it's way more, right? We all know, right? But that's right. It's way.
They're probably downplaying those sorts of statistics just so that we aren't made aware of how problematic the issue is.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's a huge industry.
Yes.
It's a big industry.
Oh, well, and it's being done on purpose. We are sexually being both repressed and suppressed on purpose. So in one hand, think about the dynamic of the world we live in. Sex is everywhere. You can't walk down the street. You can't watch a Mickey D's commercial without getting aroused by like the model in it, right? Like there's nothing. If you walk down the street, you will be exposed to some sexual stimulants, okay? Not including just the massive amount of stimulated world we live in, false stimulants. Now, on the other hand, you're also demonized for being sexual in a way, right? Like you're also then you've got like religion, right? Being like hardcore no, or my experience in Catholicism, which was you're a total sinner if you even think about it. If you masturbate, like you're going right to hell. Like this is the worst thing you could do. It's so confusing because you have one sense where you're like told that sex is first of all, sex is creation. That's how you're born. So right away, again, if you go down the Catholic road, right, you're a sinner right from the get-go because you were born in sin. You were born in sex. Now, the Vedantas give us much deeper understanding of that principle. But I didn't have any deeper understanding of that principle other than a material way of understanding it of sex is sin. So then I'm like, okay. So it's a very, very confusing time. Now throw in all the gender and the he's a man and she and hey they and thee and thee. And I'm not into any of it. Like I'm just telling you guys straight up.
Same.
Right. And I accept people as they are. I work with inside the semen retention army with gay men, with bi men, with straight men. I work with men of all different levels. And one of the things inside the Hare Krishna order is I've had tons of men reach out to me secretly. Prabhu, please don't share this, but here's my issue. Prabhu, don't tell anybody, but here's my issue. Prabhu, don't tell anybody, but I'm actually gay. I don't want anybody to know. Prabhu, right? And I'm like, come on, guys. Prabhupada was inclusive. Yes, I understand what is being presented, but let's not forget the spirit. Who was the like? Let's look at Mukunda Goswami. Let's look at the original 5 or 6. Like, you got to read those books. That's where we're coming from. Don't come to me with your righteous religiousness and talk to me when I read about Mukunda Goswami and what's chasing rhinos.
Shamasunder.
Yes.
Just a sidebar. This is just a sidebar. I just wanted to interject. Just on this particular point that you're making, that it seems it basically when you're lacking something inside, and let's use it in context of the subject matter that we're talking about. When you're lacking internal stability, then you need something to overcompensate for that lack of internal stability. So what I've observed is that there's basically 2 directions one goes, broadly speaking. One direction is like hedonism, which is basically the path of avoidance, because you don't want to face that lack of that internal vacuum. So you just dive into indulgence, which includes porn and masturbation, all these things. And the other strategy that I've noticed in the Hare Krishna order, as you called it, which is just extremely funny language to me.
Okay.
The Hare Krishna order, but there's just a strong emphasis on like religious piety,
right.
And you're also, in other words, you're also not really encountering something deep yet. And so in order to compensate for that lack of encounter of something deep, then you just need like all the religious paraphernalia and lingo and rules, and you use that as a cudgel on others to bolster your own instability internally. So I just wanted to throw that in there because it's been a meditation of mine for a couple of weeks.
It's really interesting how you present it, and I'm fascinated by it, because I would say, yes, I can understand in the way you present it what you're saying. It's like one or the other. And this is where I found, okay, so in my practice, to tie this, how did I get here, is that, so this is the dilemma I'm facing, and I'm happy we spent some time on it, because I feel, and I know from messages that I receive, that many devotees are struggling with this particular principle, right? This is not unique to me. And this is what started to spark a bigger vision. I was like, well, this is actually a thing. And not only just, I forget, like within the yogic community or the Hare Krishna, let's just talk on the human life. I have friends who aren't, atheists, right? Essentially, or just don't care, whatever, right? Just, regular people doing their thing. They go to work and they take care of their kids type of thing, right? And when I talk to them, I mean, the amount of discontent within relationships is ridiculous. We all know 50% of marriages are ending in divorce. People cannot stay together. We can't get along anymore. And there's a massive imbalance right now between male and female dynamics and energy. Now, this is where I started to, so I'm in this dilemma. I consider it a dilemma of, what do I do? How do I rectify my sexual passion, my want to be with my wife and to explore my sexuality still, and this wonderful spiritual culture that I love, but yet I find maybe isn't like, I still find a bit to fully find my place within it, right? Because I really love the philosophy and such. But again, I myself am not like, I'm not going to live in a temple. I'm not going to, I'm still very much a Western guy doing Western things. Right. And just like, that's just what it is. Right. And I'm okay with that now. I used to struggle with that. And it was sexual alchemy that helped me be okay with it, because here's what I started studying. I've always been what I'll call a spiritual explorer, meaning I haven't just studied, our, or what I said, the Hare Krishna scriptures, but I've studied the Bible. I've spent time with Buddhism. I've spent a lot of time in new agey type stuff. And I've spent time in the material, like I said, going to clubs and blah, blah, blah. I don't care. I love people, all people. I hang out with anybody. I've done seminars in prisons and I've done seminars for CEOs, and I love them both. I really think people are fascinating. So I started looking for solutions to my problem, which was like, well, what do? I see all these benefits of semen retention physically. We talked about recycling. Well, once your body starts healing at a cellular level, like semen retention does, then all of a sudden you start, like, again, brighter skin, brighter eyes. Your testosterone grows, spikes. Right now, men's testosterone average run 300 to 450 in the measurements or units of testosterone. Well, just a few generations ago, we were running at 800 to 1200, meaning at a biological level, we are less men. We are less like men than our forefathers. Now, we know from Sastra the predictions of the Kali Yuga, men becoming like women, women becoming like men. This has happened. We're seeing this, and we're seeing it play out like right in front of your eyes. And this is an imbalance of sexual energies and an imbalance first on the masculine side. I say first, we're both responsible, but as men, as a man, I was like, what can I do? And first of all, I recognize that where am I not being a man in my life and not correlating it to the fact of my lifestyle? If I'm ejaculating every day and depleting all my energy and all my masculinity, every time you ejaculate, your body releases a substance called prolactin into the system. Prolactin stifles testosterone growth. Essentially, it rewards you. You get a little dopamine because nature's saying, great, you ejaculated. That should be to go to pregnancy, but it's down, it's in your tissue or in your sock or like, wherever it is, because you're on Pornhub instead of like having sex, right? right? It ain't going nowhere. There's no ROI, right? There's no return on investment in that, right? It's just out, depleted, done, right? Now, what you end up having is what most men, and I didn't realize, I was like, no wonder I'm so soft and stuff. It's because, right? Like why am I not a man? Why am I not a man? When I look at John Wayne, I'm like, why don't I look like that guy, right? And I'm like, because that's a man. That guy is not like, he's not on Pornhub, and he's like, whatever. Anyways, you get my point. Point is this. So it's actually a physical thing that's happening. When you're constantly ejaculating, you're totally depleted of your masculine energy, which is your testosterone and your hormone balance and growth. So your testosterone is ignited because nature wants to help you out. Nature wants you to be more of a man. That think about like Arjun. Like you got to imagine. I'm feel very grateful that I was given the name. My name is Nicholas. That's my birth name, right? My Nakula is the name Bhaktimarga Swami gave me, and I feel very honored because I became almost attached to this archetype of Nakula through that, because I read Nakula after and I was like, oh my goodness, wow, Guru Maharaj nailed it. He didn't get into heaven because he was too vain about he was good looking, right? And he liked women and everything. And I was like, oh man, Maharaj knows me. He's like, this guy, maybe not this round. I don't know. We'll see, right? That's not up to me. But anyways, the point is I really resonated with these characters, right? Arjun on the battlefield, and he's a warrior and he's out there in the world, but yet he's got this understanding of God and duty, and I really resonated with that. And so I recognized that I'm like, why am I not being a man? Why am I not taking responsibility in my life for my relationship, my finances, my life? And through this process of learning about semen retention and all of this sexual transmutation stuff, I was like, I get it. I'm not actually a man fully. I'm still like a teenage boy who hasn't developed yet because I've wasted my I've wasted all my developmental energy on Pornhub or whatever, on nonsense. And so I started then going, well, what am I going to do? Because, man, you got to see my wife. I was like, it's not going to stop, right? So I was like, what am I going to do? And so I then found sexual kung fu and the Taoist tradition.
Kung fu, bro.
Sexual kung fu. Kung fu means kung fu means that which requires daily discipline. And I got that by like, I was like, okay, it's regulative principles, right? We got to regulate here. You got to tighten, squeeze the box, right? Okay. I was born in Brazil. And so I'm going to say something extremely biased.
That explains a lot. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Okay, cool. I'm really interested to hear that. So here's the deal. Brazil, okay, I'm going to say this with all like boom, just say it. Brazil is the best soccer team in the world. Okay. Okay. Now here's why. they play a game in Brazil called futsal. And futsal is a condensed field, a condensed ball, and it's very fast and tight. It's like a regulated field. So think from a training perspective now. We need to train somebody up. What we're going to do is we're going to first put a tight leash around them, right? And then we're going to say, we're going to make you strong here. So the Taoists kind of take this approach where they say, look, and this is also the tantric aspect of the tantric aspect, the tantric out of the tantric teachings, is that what we're going to do is we're going to say, first, let's regulate this. Let's not say you got to stop, but let's say you have to regulate yourself. You have to use this energy. And so in the Taoist tradition, they present it, because they're also impersonalists, they also present it very impersonally, which in a weird way, it helped me, okay? So it just is what it is. This impersonalist way had a benefit, okay? Yeah. Okay, now here's why. Because they presented it very impersonal, I didn't have to associate it with a particular deity or way of functioning in the world. They just said this: you have male and masculine energy. If you balance these energies, you will become almost like sex neutral. If you really go masculine, you'll become extremely attractive and powerful, and you will attract the feminine energy, which will be all of this like kind of material, glittery glam type stuff, right? If you go extremely feminine, right, then you'll become kind of like just lost and airy and just out in the world, and you might, you'll just, wherever, you'll just float.
That explains a lot about the state of man today. Anyway,
just on that point. Yeah, you'll just be, well, right now we're dominated by feminine energies. Everything's just, all right. And there's no structure, and nobody wants structure. Nobody wants anything, and everything's falling apart. And they're like, why is it falling apart? I was like, yeah, because you hate structure, which is the masculine energy. You right now essentially like hate masculine energy. You've made, so the Taoists dive deep into this subject, and I started reading all of these books and these Taoist teachings about sexual energy. And then they teach practices, sexual kung fu, where you do daily discipline to your sexual energy. Now, and so this consists of breath work, meditation, qigong, which are like standing or moving meditations, standing meditations, pelvic floor and Kegel exercises to strengthen the pelvic floor. What this does is, on a physical level, first of all, it makes men better lovers, because instead of trying to mimic porn or try to just mimic like these weird conceptions in the bedroom, it gets you back into your body, and it gets you back into feeling and sensation that most men and women, but I work with men, are so disconnected from, are either repressing, right? Totally repressing and being either secretive or frustrated. And this sparks out in anger, frustration, all kinds of stuff if it's just suppressed. The key is to transmute it. And so what the Taoists teach is how to hold that semen within the body and practice these techniques, which actually still allow a man to engage in a sex life, but it changes the quality or mood of sex from a raw animalistic way to now a sensual practice of giving. And then there's this whole philosophy of service in it, which is really interesting, which they say—
interesting language, a sensual practice of giving.
Yes.
I can appreciate that.
It's because what you're using is, okay, I'm going to take another, all my Vaishnavas are going to freak out that I even mentioned these things, but I've gotten value from them. So be it. Okay. Ramakrishna. Okay. Ramakrishna. Right. Yeah. Impersonalist. Right. Okay. Got it. Okay. Get it. Over that part, he said this one particular quote that always stuck with me. He said, if you're lusty, be lusty for God. He said, take that lust.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, he said, take that lust and still love God and start to do it as a service. But then what you'll notice, and this is what sexual alchemy does for me and it's done for guys and it's doing for everybody I work with, is this. you start off maybe wherever you're at in the, let's say, the lust train, right? Right, from total material lust to total spiritual desire to be servant, right? Okay, there's this spectrum. Here's what the Taoist and sexual alchemy or sexual kung fu does. It takes you from here and it begins to at least bring you to the middle path. And then if you want to go the rest of the way, you use your free will and choice and you go as far as you'd like to go. But what it does is it allows men of the modern day, men like me, all right? It allows us to have a sex life, but to retain our semen. So I have sex with my wife. We have a very active sex life, right? In fact, it makes us better lovers because now you start to recognize that when you bring control and genuine, sincere desire to actually please your partner, it changes your even need to ejaculate. It no longer becomes about you. You start to actually practice love in the bedroom. Now, what ends up happening is all of this energy, and this is where it gets really interesting. When a man or a woman,
it's already really interesting.
Okay, when a man or a woman actually engages in loving sex, meaning they have sex in the mood of love, and this has been measured and shown. When the love is so lustful, it's just like total like masturbation and porn is at the extreme. It actually throws off your hormonal balance. It just messes with your dopamine receptors. That's why guys experience depression, anxiety, all kinds of issue after like porn watching and stuff. It's because your hormones are totally out of whack. What's really interesting is that the Taoists look at it, and what's been shown in Western studies is that when sex is actually done in a mood of love and exchange, like what we call it exchange, meaning love, it's not just this raw animalistic, but you're there emotionally, you're there physically, sensually. Actually, there's a balance hormones. All your hormones are activated and start to secrete all this balancing effect. So if you have non-ejaculatory sex, you have sex, but you don't ejaculate it, what you'll notice afterwards is that you're not depleted in energy, but you're actually filled with energy. And then you learn, like acupuncture or tapping, if you're familiar with these type of practices, you learn to circulate that energy. So think about like if you're aroused. So let's think about when you're aroused, there's physical differences to you, right? Your blood flows differently, your heart pumps differently, your thoughts process. And we all know that in your brain, chemicals are released, which make your brain actually more susceptible to creating new neural pathways easier. So meaning you can install or work with your belief systems in a aroused state, or when there's more sexual energy driving through you. So what ends up happening is this you circle this energy through you, and now you're filled with energy. Here's me after sex, okay? Here's me old me after sex. Then we'll get away from the sex and go outside the bedroom. But you got to first understand it at this level. So because it takes like it gives you an approach to sex that actually has like, okay, I can see how I can propel myself forward with this. Okay. Old after sex, ejaculate, done, right? Done. Fridge, I'm out. Just sleep, right? I'm gone. Okay, 5 minutes, I'm out of there, right? Now, after sex, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go write a couple blogs, and then I'm going to work out. Why do you think I've had so much energy, right? Like, I actually have to, like, calm, right? Calm. Okay, I'm trying calm, okay? Because I hold, like, for long periods of time, right? 60 days, 90 days, longer. Like, it's just been, like, I think we're, in June right now recording this? So I've ejaculated twice this year, right? So I'm very open about this, like, because I know, like, people are like, yo, wow, this is like pretty, but you should know. Why not? What's the problem? You were born out of an ejaculation, like, just before everybody freaks out. Just remember, like, this is actually how you came into this world. So it is what it is. So, okay, so this is the bedroom practices of it. So I speak very raw about Like some guys work with me so that they can be better lovers. Some guys work with me so that they can reverse erectile dysfunction, have harder erections, boost their testosterone. I mentioned the testosterone a bit in the back. Right now, more testosterone is being prescribed to men than ever before. Wow. Pharmaceuticals, first of all, that they're cashing in on our current situation, right, with this flu, and then they're yeah, that's what it is.
We'll just leave that there. Just leave that.
Yeah, we'll just leave that. Yeah, we'll leave that there. Right, they're cashing in with the flu, and they're cashing in on depleting you and robbing you of your sexual essence. Testosterone boosters, erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation. This is haunting men. There is a direct correlation between our sexual prowess, performance, and ability. Whether we use it or not doesn't matter. It's our ability. It's the confidence to know, yes, I can if I want, and I can, and trust me, no one will be disappointed. It's that level of, let's say, ridiculous amounts of confidence because of your skills, because you're not like you're a trained practitioner in the bedroom, that you will have such a vibrancy about you that when you, now this is where in the no-fap movement, this is this level, no-fap level, where guys recognize, man, I can attract women, I can actually, and if I can retain, I can increase my sexual prowess. But guys on the spiritual path, they're not going to stay just at that level. I teach that level because I present this, here's semen retention as a spectrum of practice. And depending on your commitments and consciousness and goals, you're going to use it as you wish. So that's, to me, that's the first level. Then you get to the level of what I'll call like Napoleon Hill and success level, right? Here's where you learn to transmute that energy up and have such vibrancy that you actually begin to have remember what is true physically becomes true energetically. So now here's and this is according to Ayurveda, the body. Think about water. When you heat up water, it turns into steam and begins to flow upwards. So here's what the Taoists present, some schools of Tantra present, and so Western science presents it as it will all the nutrients and everything will circulate through the body, and this will physically make you stronger. And because you're physically stronger, you're also mentally become stronger. And your mind becomes more laser focused. So semen retention, even if someone is atheistic, will benefit is physically and mentally simply by the practice of semen retention with zero philosophy underneath that. And that's what I'm doing. My goal every year is to train 250 men to becoming semen retention practitioners, where they regulate their ejaculation to minimum once a month. In that, they will still have a surplus of energy. They will have a surplus of semen. They will be working in abundance. Energetically, here's what this begins to happen. According to Ayurveda, your semen goes through a refining process. So when the body has an excess, it's going to be like, wow, well, we have a lot here. So what we're going to do is we're going to cook this semen. We're going to turn it up and refine it from a physical substance to a energetic substance, like a liquid to a gas. As it turns into a gas, and you will know by your own inner energy and consciousness when this happens. It will begin to flow upwards in your body. And next thing you know, you're doing mantras, but you're like in that mantra. There ain't nothing but you in that mantra. Why? Because you have so much energy that you are actually more energy than matter. This is a scientific way to make you more, quote unquote, spiritual. Here's why. As it turns into gas, this gas begins to then fill your auric field. Because you have now more aura. And you're actually building your energy capacity. So now when you say something, why was Prabhupada so effective? Was he a charismatic guy and energetic? I love Prabhupada. I've said that. But from a speaking perspective, I mean, you could like, it was tough go, right? It was like, you know, you had
let's just say it's, you know, for the average Westerner, it's probably an acquired taste.
It's an acquired taste. It's an acquired taste. It
Right.
definitely is. I love listening to Prabhupada lectures, but I know people, when I'm like, let's listen to Prabhupada lectures, I can see their face like,
yeah.
oh, right. But not, and that has nothing to do with him. But why was he so effective? Because it didn't matter what he said. It mattered of who he was. His energy was so clean and pure. You have think about how much ojas he had. That's what I went to New Vrindavan, and I walked into Prabhupada's room where he would sit and sleep and chant, and every hair on my body, you can still feel his. Now here's where you're really gonna like hate me, okay? Some people, you can feel his, what I'm gonna call, to challenge you, and then I'll explain, his sex energy. You can feel his aura. You could feel him. He wasn't sexual like Krishna when he calls the gopis. It's not, he's attracting them. It's so we can understand it, so that we are material. So we think of it as sexual, but it's the same energy on a non-sexual principle. Prabhupada was so attractive just by his aura. So what the, like, for instance, you know, the tantrics as well as the Taoists, and I believe like even like the four Kumars, they all talk about their semen flowing upwards and all this type of thing. You know, there's lots of in the Shiva Tantra things that I've read. Anyways, point is this, is that you develop a higher auric field. And this auric field over time, as you develop it, actually makes you more energetic or more spiritual, because you actually, like, when I look at and feel the world, I feel the world, right? Like, it's like I feel you, but I feel your energy. Right? I see you physically, but I feel you energy. And that's how we know each other beyond words. It's like, I get you within a sec. I get this. This is a brother. I don't, right? Why? You don't even have to know, because that's how you know, this is, so it gets you so in tune with your own energy. And when you get so in tune with your own energy, because you have so much of it, guess what? You're now in tune with other people's energies. So now this is where all of the qualities, creative quality, multiplying quality, all of this becomes energetic quality. So now you are more creative. So let's take Sting. You guys know Sting.
Yeah,
He's the musician. Yeah. Sting is a Tantra practitioner. So he's not, you know, he's not transcending. He's not going to get a spirit in his lifestyle. He's, you know, according to our knowledge, he ain't getting a spiritual body next lifestyle, right? Probably, I would say a demigod status, maybe, right? right? I don't know. That's nature's design, right? Point is, Sting accredits his creativity to his practice of Tantra and recirculating his energy and not ejaculating through sex. And there's a lean. What ends up happening over time, there's an interesting book called the Taoist the Sexual Secrets of Sexual Cultivation of Taoist Mastery. I'll get you the exact title, where he talks about the spiritual aspects of this, where he says, the process of semen retention naturally makes someone more compassionate because they naturally become more empathetic. They become empathetic because they can actually feel someone's energy. So they can say, maybe I don't agree with them, but I can understand their sincerity in what they're talking about. And that's the quality that I'm looking for. Are they sincere? Right? Prabhupada was sincere. Our gurus are sincere. This is what some people can't get. So they may say two different things, but they both say it sincerely. It's the quality of sincerity that makes it both attractive. So it attracts one person or another person, but what makes it attractive is the purity of the sincerity in which it's delivered.
I really appreciate that, just in light of the opposite in terms of like the condition of men today. If you look at the condition of men today and just using your language, the level of insincerity because of the depletion of our somatic life through PMO and other such things. And so just like a lot of anger and inability to empathize and inability to appreciate, like, I don't agree with that, but that's sincere. And just losing the line of logic that you just took us through, we're tying it to the depletion of the somatic life. And I think you have the statement, what is true physically is true energetically. And so that's happening energetically also. And so there's almost an inability to empathize, to appreciate the sincerity of others. I just want to throw it out there.
Yeah, 100. Love it. Thank you. I appreciate it. You're giving me nice language to be able to say
I'm a little bit of, I'm like the
ways.
mage archetype. You're giving me like a lot of warrior archetype. I'm like more like a mage.
I'm total like fire, man. I'm here to chop up shit. Like straight up. I'm sorry. I'm very clear. This is okay for anybody who's maybe struggling in their journey. And if this offers you any comfort, it did for me, is I got very clear that I am not Brahminical, right? I thought I was. Because I find in our movement, there's such a high stress of that particular right thing. So it's like, that's the so I ain't top of the nation, but I'll run this nation and I'll get it done. Right. And I'll take advice from the Brahmas. I came here to cut and chop and like Nakula with the swords. He was amazing with the. I was like, I came here to do the same, because right now, in my opinion, my perspective with where I'm at is what this world needs right now is some people to wake people up in a little bit more of a shocking way. It's almost like we're like the state of the Kali Yuga is so just rampant right now that you actually need a little bit of Kali Yuga dirt on you to understand and have compassion. When a devotee or anybody, and you got to understand, the Semen Retention Army, was not created for devotees. This was created for all men. Period. Done. Who was this created for? Men. Done. There's no other qualifier to work in semen retention than you have semen to retain.
You know what? Just as a sidebar, we did an episode. I forget what the title of the episode was, but my first question was, what does it mean to be a man? And most of us on that episode, we like have a lot of more mage energy, So it was like kind of like an abstraction for us. And so we came down to a very practical. Hari Vilas was on the episode. He gave a very practical definition. But now using your language, if you have semen, you are a man.
You're a man.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, but then Hari Vilas, what he said, because it's really good. He was like, if you're a man, it means that you cannot get pregnant.
Yeah. He said when the man and woman come together for sex, the one that doesn't get pregnant is a man.
Yeah.
It's so simple. I don't get what the confusion is, right?
Well, the confusion is that the way people think of identity today is so divorced from the somatic. It's so divorced from the actual physical body. And so when it's just mental, you can play around with it. But when you are embodied, like when you think about it in terms of the body, it's not so flexible. You have to appreciate the limitations of the body that you have.
That's right. That's what sexual alchemy has done is it's taken me more out of my head into my body, where I can feel my body's intelligence more.
Right.
Yes. And that's the real secret sauce to it. All the rest, like the testosterone growth, all that stuff, you'll get all that, the bedroom, all that. Here's to me the real magic of it is that what it does is for a man is it makes you actually know yourself at a physical level more, and then recognize whatever's physically true for you is also spiritually true for you. So when I came to this thing, I was like, well, it's spiritually true that I'm lusty then, because I can't see. I mean, I get a little ankle flash and I'm still like, oh man, did you see that ankle? that was a nice ankle. Right? and so I have to really come to terms with who am I kidding with this little show?
It's so interesting to hear you say that just in the context of being a Hare Krishna, because the root problem of existence as presented by Hare Krishnas, the root problem being we're turned away from Krishna, but the way it manifests is that we're attached to the body. Yes. And so that's like the first lesson that are drilled into our minds, and we embrace it. We accept it to be true. We even know it to be true experientially and vicariously. But then the negative side of that teaching as far as what happens to people's lives is we become kind of like disembodied. And the result of the disembodiment is that the mind starts to really F us up. Like it can really now play with us in ways that we wouldn't be able to be manipulated if we were just like more embodied. Understanding that the body can be problematic if you're attached to it. But like I'm embodied. I know I'm a man. I know I'm dealing with these sorts of energies and this is how I need to direct it. We don't get that. So we become spiritual, but in the result of our spirituality, we become disembodied. And it seems that the result of that is man not being able to thrive just because they're just not sufficiently embodied. Like I feel like man can't go around saying I'm not this body unless you already like on high level, you know, soul realization. You got to really understand, like you can't just dismiss that until you've really understood what the body itself has to teach you.
Yeah.
And I'm now that I say that, I'm appreciating that because in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, there's 24 gurus or 24, 20, I think it's 24. But the last guru in that section is the physical body. So the body has something to teach you also, but we learned that we're not the body. And so we kind of just threw that teacher away before we kind of assimilated the lessons, and the result doesn't look very good even for our own community.
Yeah, you got to do something with that body, you know?
Yeah.
It's like there's a lot there. You got to do something. Jai, everything that you just said, like to the T, to the last syllable, I experience it so intensely, so viscerally on a day-to-day level, and it's driving me absolutely insane. And I just want to say that this entire experience, Nakul Prabhu, of listening to you speak is just like, I'm like, bro, like everything that you're talking about, like I've been feeling so intensely and sort of identifying, seeing around me, feeling it myself, you know? And then a few months ago, like sort of midway throughout last year, I wrote this article in which I basically like really laid out the situation, like what's happening with guys through my experience and people that I've, you know, connected with, and then also just the broader kind of issue in our Krishna conscious society that everyone is like sexually like just going crazy, but no one is speaking about it. No one is speaking. And like everything that you're saying when you were describing how the Taoists have these practices that then essentially takes the sex act and makes it like an offering of service, right? Like I was sensing that, like I was sensing that this has to be possible. This needs to be somehow or other done. How can the most powerful, intense, like most highly pleasurable function of the human body not be engaged in service? Like
this is because it's bringing coronavirus is bringing so much good energy here.
Yeah.
This might be a good place just to plug. In 1 week, a week from Saturday, it was going to be this Saturday, but now it's a week from Saturday. Now we're going to have Nakul on our Discord page, which Corona Avatar will get you talk about the end, to do a seminar on sex mastery. His free session that he does for those men. It's for men, men who are interested, and you know, let's say for men who are matching Corona Avatar's energy or just inquisitive about what they might say to others who need this sort of support. Nakul's going to do a thing on our Discord page on this very subject matter. So I just want, it just seemed like a really appropriate place to plug it because you're bringing so much energy to that, your own personal experience with this.
Guys, like wait, I'm not done. We got to do this thing. Like we really, really, really got to do this thing. And I just want to say, this is now my final thing that's, you know, coming into the whole picture, which has been driving me absolutely insane, is that this article that I wrote, I was never able to publish it because I sent it to someone, a senior person in our society, someone who's very, very dear to me and you know, is so benevolent towards me and I believe really loves me. But this person basically said to me, if you say these things in public, you're going to get your head chopped off. You're going to get like kicked the hell out of the ISKCON society. And I'm sitting here having this like super intense experience of like, you know, and I can't do anything about it. I can't say, I don't know how to manage it. Like, I don't know what to do. And I'm being told that I can't say anything. you know, and I can't really disobey that because then I'm offensive, and it's like,
yeah. I think a lot of guys within any religious order and people feel like that right now. People feel like that frustration is being felt right now by everyone who, for instance, doesn't agree with either, you know, the lockdowns or the way the flu has been handled. And that is like, it's I tried. Why did you start laughing? I tried to say
because you're calling it the flu. And I know you're intentionally calling it that.
Yeah,
so
totally. Yeah.
Okay, carry on.
Okay, so people are frustrated with that, and then now we get into our more like, so let's say, you know, within the Hare Krishna society, so that's like a small society within the larger society. Then they get there, and then they feel, okay, I still can't be me here fully. Okay, let me get even smaller. Okay, I can't. No, okay, my family. It used to be you could be whoever you want, but now because, you know, because mom still has insecurity issues, I have it, and now you start. I can't even deal with my family. Well, why do you think everybody loves their phone? Right? They love their phone and they love the all of these other things so much, because I think, going back a little bit to echo what Jaya said, is like, we are so disconnected with the reality of our situation, right? We are so in our head. We don't realize how much we are not just being like first awesome human beings, and then let's be awesome, you know, spiritual beings, but recognize there's no difference. It's one and the same. Becoming a man fully and learning how to take care of your family and do your duty and be self-controlled. Like, what is a man, right? Someone who's self-controlled and sense pleasure and sense controlled and sensitive. Sense control means I can regulate my body. I can control my body. I can master my body. Remember, we talk about like, I am the soul, that realization. Great. If you realize you're a soul, then you also realize you live in your body. Your consciousness, don't mistake consciousness and the soul. Remember, Prabhupada makes a distinction between the two. In New Agey movies, they don't make a distinction. But this is where our philosophy is much deeper. They'll say, where I am consciousness. And Prabhupada says, no, you are soul. And the first symptom of the soul is consciousness. You are in your body. You are seated in the heart. You are in the body. So where is it that you have domain and power? In your body. You can only become realized in your body, right? Like it's where everything's happening. You ain't doing nothing else, like anything else. You're just imagining you're doing stuff, and you're off in this fairyland fantasy in your head. And you're also, what's happening a lot within all over the world is people are selling themselves on their piety when they're not pious. Right? They're like, absolutely. I'm so, you know, I'm part of this movement. I'm righteous. I'm part of that movement. I'm awoke, but I don't even know what that means, because like, you know, like because they don't know that they're not even their body. People call themselves woke. And I'm like, and then they're talking about a totally material subject, about the identification of their body. So we are so far beyond like this type of understanding that why not use sex as the little penetrative force to reach people, because it is the place in which people are actually the most suppressed in this society.
I want to I wish we could extend this podcast a little bit longer. We could normally, but I know I think we have to go in 10 minutes, about 10 minutes. And
I got some new army soldiers to welcome in. What's that plug?
There's so much more that I think needs to be said, or could be said.
Yeah, we're gonna definitely have to have a follow-up. I mean, you're gonna come on Discord and give a workshop and whatever, and we'll tell people. But
the workshop will be more like practices. Like in the workshop, like come in your sweats and sweater or whatever, right? And like I'm going to show you breathing techniques and exercises and stuff that you can do, right? Fully clothed, if anybody's wondering, right? Like we don't go there, right? You know, these are all very practices that you'll be able to do fully. And again, even if you're like, well, I don't want to, like, you know, I don't care about becoming more sexually active or prowess, or this is just simply a practice of cultivating that energy, and then you'll be able to use it how you will. So I've got guys that I work with that, again, are totally like like they are in it for learning more about sex and sexuality and bedroom practices. That's why they're there. And I've got other guys that I work with that they are completely in it as God conscious devotees. Right? And I've got Christian guys as well as Hare Krishna guys so far. And I've got Muslim guys too, actually.
One thing I would be interested in, if you, I had it on my questionnaire here, but we're not going to be able to get to it. Just looking at your content on your social media is kind of like entertainment for me. Just because, you know, I lived in an ashram for 13 years, very solid. When I was in the ashram, I was in Rahu period, so I basically had no heavy sensual disturbances for the most part during my brahmacharya. I studied a lot. You know, like I said, I have a lot of mage archetype energy. And so that's kind of how my mind is programmed when I'm looking at the world. So when I go to your page, you know, there was one post, and this has got to be, if you would be happy to come on a future episode. Absolutely. There was one post you shared recently where my first reaction was like cringe. And my very next reaction was like, I appreciate that. And it was a post. It was like basically a picture of a woman's vulva, basically. Is that what?
Oh yeah.
And you're saying like, and you were saying in the post, you have to know all the pleasure points so that you can like serve. And so my initial reaction was like, you know, WTF? This is like anti-Vedanta, blah, blah, whatever was going on in my whole psyche. Sure. And then my very next moment was like, wow, I really appreciate that. And I appreciate it in light of an experience I had in Cali, Colombia, where some devotees, two people there, a couple that became devotees, they own a sex shop.
Yeah.
And so we asked them one time, we were having lunch, and we asked them one time, who's your biggest client? You know, we kind of just like assumed. And they said, our biggest clients are women. Like they say 80% of our clientele is women.
Yes.
And are women. And I was like, what? How is that even possible? And then they said most of the women who've reported to them at the sex shop that they come because they feel like they're masturbatory dolls, basically, for their men. Or with their man, and therefore they don't really feel loved, they don't feel cared about, and so like just seeing that particular post of yours in context of this experience in Kali, and I was just like, yeah, I get that, because most men won't be able to transcend those sexual scripts that they inherited from their childhood of porn abuse and so on. Yeah, and made me appreciate this whole idea, like really, like even teaching a man how to have sex, or like what he's got to do. I just found it very fascinating. It's just something that you're not going to find in our culture at all. And it's just like a kind of, for me, it's very fascinating. I think it has many layers that probably need to be peeled off to treat that subject matter like fairly. I do have one other question. I think Corona wants to say something.
I need to say something right now. This is very, very necessary, because the fact of the matter is that we have an entire generation of men, even if they're devotees, who were raised on pornography, watching pornography probably every single day, jacking off to it, like wasting all of that developmental energy. And that is what is in men's minds about how sex is had. And that is a big problem, because now we're devotees and we want to bring like the most enlightened, we want to attract enlightened souls into this world, man. Now you're telling me like you're gonna go and have like porn sex with your like Devi Dasi to bring a like, you know, enlightened being into this world? Come on, get out of here, man. Get out of here. You got to learn how to do it properly. There's like, this porn shit needs to be eradicated. And like conscious methods of lovemaking need to be taught. Like,
I appreciate what you're saying, because it's true. Like, think about, like, I went to high school sex ed class, and it was like, totally, like, here's a condom, here's the million STIs that you could possibly conceive. Like, it's total like fear, right? Like, pretty much you're dirty if you do it. Then it's a beautiful process. Let's watch a baby being born. I'm like, oh, I don't want to see that. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, right? This is sex ed class. It's horrible, right? Here's what, and it's just, and then nothing's taught about the emotional side, the mental side, the physical side, much less even taught about the spiritual side. So I wanted to add on about the idea of the sex shop and women and such. So I'll give you some stats, okay? It takes an average woman about 20 minutes to get into a state before she can really even feel a deeper sense of pleasure and, you know, have an orgasm or anything like that. At least 20 minutes, average woman. Most guys average right now are finished after penetration within 5 minutes. So what ends up happening is the woman doesn't want to say anything because she doesn't want to demasculate her man. The man kind of knows in his head he's already demasculated, right? He's like, that was not good, right? Like, you just know, right? Like, I've performed and been like, that wasn't that good, right? And then, you know, but in that sense, and again, we're talking quite at a bedroom level here, but this is a serious thing. Well, what ends up happening is actually over time, the total sexual passion or dies out in a relationship. And I know in our culture, like in the Hare Krishna culture, there's this idea of now you become friends and such. But in the very Western culture, many people are still like want to be like, you know, yes, my wife is my best friend. She knows it. Like, she sits right there, right? So like my wife is my best friend. And these practices have helped our relationship go to a whole new level. Not just in the bedroom, yes, there too, but outside the bedroom, because in these practices, you find levels of vulnerability and sincerity and truthfulness that you will not be able to experience the higher pleasures unless you are willing to be vulnerable, unless you are willing to face yourself and your insecurities and limitations. The higher pleasures will not be for you. The higher realizations will not be for you. And so there is this dynamic within the bedroom that that certain sects of yogis learned and the Taoists learned, that they can use sex to actually fall into meditative states and experience themselves as more energy beings. And this brings a whole level of different type of pleasure. What's really interesting about this is if you practice by natural design, the really raw lustfulness will start to disappear, or you will start to find yourself very much just focused on other things, because even without ejaculating, you'll feel satisfied in there because you'll be more connected. And at the end of the day, we are very disconnected from our bodies. Therefore, we're very disconnected from each other and reality. And we are therefore very easily manipulated and controlled by every vice or every flu that comes around.
Oh my God! There it is again. All right, final question. I know because you got to ride out. I do want to ask this final thing,
Yes,
and this is more just from the Hare Krishna order perspective. And I'm going to say it in this particular way, but in your long-term thinking about this subject matter, do you have a plan for pulling out? And what I mean by that, a plan for like, okay, now I've done the grihasta thing for this period.
Oh, yeah.
Now there's time for just like that spiritual preoccupation time and getting ready for death. Do you think about that? And is that a part of the like not technique, but the sort of schema that you would offer to like your spiritual clients, for example, or the more spiritually inclined clients?
Yeah, 100%. I've both thought about it and had many conversations. And I teach Varanashram. It's one of the basic things that I teach as like a personal development tool, because a lot of things is people also have misunderstandings. Again, we're just not in a very good state. So there's so much about life that we just don't. Some of the most basic things we just don't get. And so a lot of us don't realize, like, what are we supposed to be doing in this stage of life, right? So my thing is that, yes, absolutely, you know, as we get into our later years, that we should be letting these things go, right? And that we should move. And in our later years, as we're recommended, we should take sannyasi order. And even if you don't take it by robe but you take it, it's Prabhupada always said, I remember the story of one of the devotees says, he comes with a letter, I was recommended to be initiated by so-and-so. And Prabhupada said, yes, we'll initiate you because you were recommended by so-and-so. And then he says, but remember, the real initiation's in the heart, right? Right. So meaning we should progress over time. And in our later years, I highly recommend that we renounce. This isn't supposed to be like, oh, this is a stage that you can use to get yourself to the next level first materially. I mean, it's very difficult when you are, when you can't pay your bills or it's tight, right? And then you want to sit there and do mantras and you've got that thing going on. And guys have to learn how to deal with life, right? Like, and it's right. It's to be like, I'm gonna fall in full samadhi. No, you ain't. Not because your wife is like upset, because you went 5 minutes last night, or she's not feeling satisfied, right? Or she's, there's all kinds of issues there. You're not communicating well. You're not in sync. Most men are sitting in their feminine energy in their relationships. Right? They're so passive. They can't plan a date night, is much less a life. And then they're like, why doesn't she don't want to, be all on me all the time? Because I'll just tell guys, if you want more sex, right? Okay. Just to go on that level, if you just want a more attractive relationship, most of that attraction is going to happen from what you do outside the bedroom, right? You want sex and she wants you to be a man. All right. So here's the exchange. You be a man and learn to become sense controlled and control yourself in and outside the bedroom through the practices of semen retention. It will blow up your energy, and watch how she will then be there for you in ways that you probably don't even realize she has within her, because you have. Okay. I know we're a little bit over. That's okay.
I mean, we're okay. We can go.
I know it's you guys. That's what I'm saying. It's okay. I know it's you guys.
I'm being conscious of your time.
Yes, thank you, and I do appreciate that. I want to tell. I have so much to share about the subject that it's. I wish we could go on. Radhanath Swami gave a talk at a wedding. So two couple were getting married, and he gives a talk about Rama and Sita. And he talks about how Sita was so devoted to Rama and she would follow him into the forest and she would do anything and blah, 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 blah. And then at the end, he goes like this. But are you a man like Rama to make a Sita? Like, not to make it. That's like, you know what I mean? Like, right. But the point was, are you a Rama? Are you are you a man that your woman will actually want to follow you into the forest? When you say to your woman, babe, we're going to the forest. We're going to lead a war. Right? We're going to do
the way
this.
the men are now. They're like looking at you like, nah.
She's like, you still haven't taken out the garbage from last week. Right? That's that. And then men are like, yeah, why isn't she on me like a porn star? Because you're not worthy of that yet. And that is a serious pill to swallow as a man. That's where you have to come to. That's what I had to do. As I had to say, it's time. If I really want my life to improve, I got to stop messing around in my head. I got to get in my life.
Bruh.
I got to get in my life. I got to get off social. I use a lot of social media, but I'm not on social media. You have a program that schedules my social media. I got time allotted to go and answer messages. I am one activity to the next. From the time I wake up in the morning to the time I go to sleep, my schedule is full. And I did that by I have the energy to do it because I retain my semen. And I recognize that you will not have the energy to fulfill your actual material goals, much less your spiritual goals, unless you amplify your energy. And this practice does it. It's why every spiritual tradition, no matter what, around the world has some form, some mood, some way, shape, or form where they talk about, like the Orthodox Jews, for example, it's Friday night. Friday night in an Orthodox family, you know what's going down. And it's well known. It's talked about. This is mom and dad's time. Kids, movies, right? Right? It's mom and dad. It's just known. It's so weird. I find it in a culture that's so sexually open and everybody's so sexually, open and experimenting that they don't know nothing about sex. I was like, and I think it's a real sad state of affair. I'll end like that.
So much. Nakula, this has been a very fascinating discussion. I think the word is inimitable. You're very unique.
What does that mean?
It means like one of a kind, not able to be replicated.
You cannot be imitated. You cannot be imitated.
And
You're like
yep.
totally your
It's been a
own
very fascinating
person.
discussion. We hope to have, maybe we can do one or two more with you, but at least we'll have you on for a workshop. So maybe Karuna Avatar, you can.
We can do one
Yeah.
before the workshop again. We can do like a part 2, and that way people can get more of a flavor for it, and then we can have maybe some more people come check out our workshop.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk to you very shortly about part 2. We can even do it next week, since we'll be having you next weekend for the workshop. But anyway, we'll discuss if you're available. But you know what, Nakul Prabhu, you have to go. We're gonna say goodbye to you now. You can just leave the studio because Jai and I have some announcements to make, so we'll stay live for a little bit, okay?
Sounds good. Thank you guys so much. So appreciate
Hariom.
you guys.
Thank you, bro.
Hariom.
Jai ho. Okay, dear devotees and everyone that is listening. Okay, so we'll have Nakul okay, firstly, you all got to know we have a community, right? Like we have a community particularly dedicated to men. We have a sort of sangha that gets together every Saturday. We're like super we go through all kinds of activities together, help each other set up regimens in our lives for the things that we need to achieve, like that. And we've just started a Discord server upon which everything is basically happening. And that's really where you need to be if you want to get in on it. So I'm just going to post that particular link in the comments right now. That's the first link that everyone needs. Okay, so there it is. And so yeah, you could join up. That's where you'll find Nakul next Saturday for this workshop on sexual mastery. That's the first thing. Then we have a really, and I'm also going to just post quickly Nakul's website, just so that you can go and sort of get his vibe over there. So that's also coming right about now. And then we have a super exciting announcement to make. So we have a little crew that we've put together. I've asked them if they wanted to remain anonymous, but they all said they're totally open to be, known to be a part of this project that we're undertaking. Essentially, what we've done is we've created a questionnaire, a very comprehensive questionnaire. And I'm going to just read the introduction to our questionnaire. It's super short. We sense widespread sexual malaise in our society of devotees, yet nobody is talking about sex openly. The purpose of this questionnaire is to gather totally anonymous data pertaining to the sexual values of committed couples in our society. Would you be so kind as to answer a few of our questions? So this is our questionnaire that we've literally just published today. And we would super appreciate it to get as many answers to our questionnaire as possible. Basically, you have to be a Hare Krishna, and you have to be in a committed relationship. Those are the criteria. So we would really appreciate getting as many answers as possible, because we really want to know what is going on in the sex lives of devotees. How do they feel about it?
Not out of a weird. Sorry, I was going to say not out of a weird curiosity or fascination, but we're preparing ourselves for another episode, which we would hope can be based on a lot of the data feedback. An episode that Krishna Avatar came up with at the very beginning of our attempt to, at the very beginning of the assembly of this podcast, Krishna Avatar came up with an idea called 108 Shades of Gray around the sexual melee sort of topic, but we kind of refrained from bringing up too many sexual topics because we wanted to make sure that people knew that our podcast would be variegated, that we're not just focusing on the sex part, but we're focusing on different aspects of the inner life of man in general and humans in general, but men specifically. But now we've done that work. We've got like 32 episodes out now. We showed you the variety that we can offer with this podcast. So now we want to get more into some of the original inspiration for integrating this, podcast together with this sort of topic. And we need your help. We need data so that we're not just speculating, but we have some maybe real insight of what's going on in the minds of devotees, so we can have honest discussions around a very sensitive subject matter.
Absolutely. Really well said, Jai. So I put the link in the comments. Please answer the questionnaire. Please spread the word, share the link, help us to gain the data so that we can really have an informed conversation about what's going on in our KC society pertaining to that fourth regulative principle. Anyway, okay, so thank you so much everyone for joining us today. I think we it was just so entertaining listening to Naku, wasn't it?
It was for sure.
Yeah, man, it was really, really great. Okay, Hare Krishna. And if you want to get in touch with us, if you want to give us any feedback, if you want to raise any points, any thoughts, arise heroic man at gmail.com. And we are also on Instagram at Arise Heroic Man. And we also have a Facebook page for our podcast. That isn't quite so happening just yet.
We're moving slow. We're not rushing or anything.
Yeah.
It's slow degrees.
Yeah.
That's our excuse.
Okay. Goranga.